During a World Cup qualifying match against Austria, Romanian fans drew global attention by displaying a banner reading Defend Nigerian Christians. The message highlighted ongoing persecution of Christians in Nigeria, where extremist violence, kidnappings, and church attacks have claimed tens of thousands of lives. Despite government denials, watchdog groups like Open Doors rank Nigeria among the most dangerous countries for Christians. During a recent World Cup qualifying match against Austria, Romanian football fans made international headlines by raising a bold message in support of the persecuted Christians in Nigeria. At Romania's home stadium Arena Națională, supporters unfurled a large banner with the words Defend Nigerian Christians, drawing attention to the cycle of violence and oppression faced by Christian communities in Nigeria. The gesture comes amid ongoing persecution of Christians in Nigeria who have been targeted by extremist groups, kidnapping gangs, and radical factions. Over recent years, many churches, schools, and villages have reportedly been attacked by Islamists, with hundreds of lives lost and thousands displaced. US Senator Ted Cruz has raised this issue in US Congress, stating that more than 50,000 Christians may have been killed since 2009 and pushing for sanctions on Nigerian officials accused of negligence or complicity. Republican Representative Riley Moore also condemned the persecution and urged Secretary of State to designate Nigeria a country of particular concern. While the Nigerian government denies that the violence is targeted exclusively at Christians, Open Door ranks Nigeria as sixth dangerous country for a Christian to live. According to the Catholic World Report, at least 160 Nigerian priests have been kidnapped or killed in the past decade. EWTN claims that more Christians were killed or kidnapped in Nigeria than any other country in 2024.
We're also going to talk about legislation I introduced this week to protect Christians in Nigeria. Nigeria has seen a persecution of Christians that has been staggering. Just this week, over 60 people were murdered by jihadists, by radical Islamists in northeastern Nigeria. They executed soldiers. They went house to house. This pattern of targeting Christians, targeting Catholic priests, targeting individual men, women, and children is horrific. And my legislation would put real consequences on the government of Nigeria and those who are facilitating this persecution, put real consequences on them to change that.
We have yet another horrible report to share with you out of Nigeria. Masara Kim from Truth Nigeria is here. Masara, give us the details.
Yeah, on the 14th of the night actually of the October the 14th, 15 people were killed in the area south of Jos, precisely 15 to 50 miles south of Jos, in the Bokos and Barkin Ladi areas. 11 people were killed in one community, and there were other communities where 2 people each were killed. And those attacks on October the 14th happened just a few hours after 2 people were buried in another community just on the southwest of Jos, the capital of Plateau State. And of course, this is just the most recent of such incidences. In the past 2 weeks, actually, we've buried more than 25.
So the videos that we're showing right now on screen, the videos that you sent me, Masara, what are we looking at? What is this burial?
Yeah, so that was the burial of the 11 victims of 11 victims of the attack, attack of October the 14th in the village of Rachas. It's spelled Rachas, located in the Haipang district of Barkin Ladi County or local government in Nigeria. So this area is home to the only airport, and of course it's an international airport. It's called the Yakubu Gowon International Airport in Plateau State, which is heavily guarded. And this community has 2 prominent military checkpoints on the north and south of it. It's actually located on the highway, and of course these checkpoints are just located about 1 mile away from this community on both sides of the road. But then again, this attack was launched and 11 people were killed. 5 of them children from ages 12 2 to 5 actually. And of course, you look at those videos. I didn't share the most gory part. Of course, a lot of them you will see their brains hanging out. Of course, they shot them in close range, chiefly while they were sleeping at about 10 p.m. local time.
Well, Masara, let me ask you this question. As you know, the Nigerian government is pushing back against these reports. I'm actually going to be interviewing some members of the Nigerian government here soon to hear their side of the story. But why, in your estimation, is the Nigerian government so anxious to say that what you're reporting and what all your colleagues are reporting at Truth Nigeria is in some way not accurate, or it's more of a tribal clash? It's not a genocide. It's not a Christian persecution. How would you respond to this push by the Nigerian government to, I don't know the word, maybe cover up what you guys are reporting?
Yeah, so first of all, it's the culture of complicity, and secondly, the culture of denial, and of course, the corruption that is so endemic in Africa's most populous country, right? So, first of all, most of these attacks are carried out in the full glare of the military, under the full watch, the watchful eyes of the military, and most of these military. These soldiers actually, sometimes when you get to them, you interact with them on a personal level. They tell you that usually they would have to wait for orders from Abuja, which never come, and sometimes they would have to wait for logistics. Sometimes they have vehicles without even gas. So how do they even respond? So sometimes it's really difficult actually to get these guys to even respond at the time you want them to. So that's actually part of the administrative problems that we have. And then, of course, on another level, you have also this culture of complicity. A lot of the terrorists, a lot of the soldiers are in active connivance with these terrorists. Sometimes, actually, I have interacted with, sources. Of course, our intelligence has shown us that sometimes these terrorists even buy time, literally pay for time, like time within which they will have to operate. And usually you see this happening every now and then. The soldiers, there are military checkpoints and military bases dotted across the entire landscape, chiefly located within 1 to 2 mile distance. Yet the soldiers never show up. Sometimes, if they would show up several hours after the attack is complete, just like we had on the night of October the 14th. And what is even far more interesting is that the attack of this Tuesday, which was October the 14th, followed just few hours, less than 10 hours after um, a so-called peace meeting was held between Christian leaders and Muslim leaders, which was part of the efforts by the Nigerian authorities to just explain away, dismiss these attacks as mere clashes between sedentary farmers and semi-nomadic cattle herders. Now, again, if you remember, last week, it was on the 9th that we have had an interview where I told you about Christians who were slaughtered along a highway south of Jos. Those Christians were actually, majority of them were returning from another peace meeting in the same Barkin Ladi County, right? So they were summoned to these meetings where they were forced to make verbal agreements or sign peace agreements or make commitments for peace and all of that. And after these meetings were completed, the participants on their way back were ambushed on the way and they were slaughtered. The same way, this particular incident happened. They went for peace meetings and came back, and then they were slaughtered in their homes. Chiefly, all of the peace agreements or the peace meetings that have been organized by the army or by the Nigerian government have always been followed by mass murders. And then again, this brings the question: who is doing what? Who is telling who what? Because it looks apparently that these peace meetings are only aimed at getting the Christian side to just relax their guard, to just feel that we're secured and nothing is going to happen. The perpetrators have now agreed to now ceasefire. Only to give room for them to come and sweep and just carry out more and more murders. Now that's on the part of the complicity that I talked about. The economic aspect of it, right? The corruption. Nigeria lives on foreign loans. Chiefly on foreign loans. That's on the one hand. Secondly, again, many Nigerian politicians have friends and allies and business and interests overseas, chiefly in the United States, and they feel that if this narrative, this campaign against the ongoing genocide succeeds, then Nigeria is going to be relisted as a country of particular concern, and that could mean sanctions, that could mean restrictions, trade restrictions, that could mean restrictions on arms purchase, that could mean restrictions on loans, that could mean restrictions even on travel against certain politicians, and that is what they don't want. That is what they're trying to push back against.
That was very well put, my brother. And I can feel your frustration. So let me see if I understand this right. Well, first off, of these 14 that were killed, are these all Christians?
Absolutely, 100% Christians. Some of them even members of members of family members of church leaders, right? So, in the videos that I shared with you, you see this reverend gentleman who was screaming and wailing, shouting at the top of his voice while standing on the mass grave in front of the corpses laid in front of him in the mass grave. He had actually had to go inside of the mass grave before they were covered to speak from there. Reason being that on the afternoon of October the 14th, the army released a press statement criticizing him and actually labeling him as a liar and someone who was peddling false rumors intended to smear the reputation of the Nigerian army, simply because he escalated a terror alert that we had shared at Truth Nigeria, drawing attention to impending terror alerts in that same region, right? So they called him a liar. They said his claims were baseless and a propaganda aimed at bringing the Nigerian army to disrepute. And less than 10 hours later, people were slaughtered. Now, this reverend gentleman, these people are his members. So he has buried, if you play that record, you will hear him say, I am tired of mass burials. He keeps shouting, I am tired of mass burials. I would rather die than to live and continue to carry out mass burials of my members killed. And these are actually members of, not just members of this church, but members also of, leaders of his church, members of the families of, family members of the leaders of his church. Right. And of course, these are people that are identified. These are people that can be verified. These are people that if you want phone numbers of the family, you want their names, you want their identity numbers and everything, that can be traced. This can also be provided. The Nigerian government absolutely has nothing against what we are doing except its own interest. 2 days, on this particular day, on October the 14th, while the army was holding those so-called peace meetings and countering the Reverend Ezekiel Dachumo, the Senate was busy setting up a committee not to respond to the concerns, not to respond to the threats against Christians, but to respond to these allegations, to respond to this campaign, to bring attention to what is going on to Nigeria, just to ensure some protection to not just Christians, but religious minorities who are the primary targets of these terror groups.